In David Talbot's Saturn myth, he recalls the age of Kronos. He discusses how Greek legends recall a remote and mysterious era of Kronos, the creator god, who wielding his sickle ruled from the summit of Mount Olympus, eventually displaced by his own son, against whom he warred violently. Kronos seems to have appeared to the Greeks as a split personality, at once a radiant god, the very author of the world, and a dark, demonic power. But in the older traditions, with roots in earliest antiquity, Kronos is preeminently the good king, his darker side concealed. Hesiod recalls, "First of all the deathless gods who dwell on Mount Olympus made a golden race of mortal men who lived in the time of Kronos when he was reigning in heaven. And they lived like gods without sorrow of heart, remote and free from toil and grief. Miserable age rested not on them. The fruitful earth, unforced, bare them fruit abundantly and without stint. They dwelt in ease and peace upon their lands, with many good things, rich in flocks and loved by the blessed gods." When Hesiod wrote those lines, the age of Kronos was but a faint and often confused memory. To observe the antiquity of the idea, one need only refer to the cradles of ancient civilizations in Egypt and Mesopotamia. Among the Egyptians, the Pharaoh of the Paradisal Age possessed many names, but each tradition proclaimed the same original excellence of creation, subsequently corrupted. This peaceful epoch was the distinctful age of Kronos, under a different title. Throughout their history, the Egyptians believed in a time of perfection at the beginning of the world. Egyptian sources state that in the earliest age, the great god was the first king, a ruler whose life served as a model for all succeeding ages. With the god king Osiris, the Egyptians constantly associated a vanished golden age. As king, Osiris, the beneficent being, taught his subjects to worship the gods, gave them the arts of civilization, and formulated the laws of justice, founding sacred temples and cities and decimating wisdom from one land to another. He became the benefactor of the whole world, but his eventual murder brought worldwide destruction. Among classical writers such as Herodotus, Diodorus and Plutarch, the idea prevails that Osiris lived on our earth as a man or a man-god. Egyptian sources too often portray him in human form, yet the early religious texts say again and again that Osiris was the supreme light of heaven, ruling from the cosmic centre. He was in fact the Lord of the gods, God One. His body formed the circle of the Tuat, the celestial residence of the gods, and the secondary gods themselves constituted the limbs of Osiris. Indeed, the traditions of Osiris melt into those of Ra, the God One, who came into being in primeval times. Just as Osiris followers remembered his rule on earth, so did other Egyptians recall the terrestrial reign of the creator god, Ra. To this age, the Egyptians continually look back with regret and envy. To declare superiority above one thing above all other things imaginable, it was enough to affirm its like had never been seen since the days of Ra. Ra was the pharaoh of the gods who reigned over the terrestrial world, but he wandered away when the heavens fell into disorder. All chronological traditions affirms that Ra had once ruled over Egypt, and it is a remarkable fact that every possessor of the throne of Egypt was proved by some means or another to have the blood of Ra flowing in his veins. But the same belief applied to Horus, the god king par excellence, as well as Atum, Khepera, Ptah and Amen. The fact, which must be explained, is that the memory of the creator king and his original age of abundance was far broader than any local tradition. And this story is not limited to Egypt. According to the theologian and historian Eusebius, the ancient tribes of Chaldea owed their civilization to a powerful and benevolent figure named Onus, and Onus ruled before the deluge. Prior to Onus, the tribes lived without order like the beasts, but the new god king, who issued from the sea, instructed mankind in writing and various arts, the formation of cities and the founding of temples. He also taught them the use of laws, of bounds and divisions, also the harvesting of grains and fruits, and in short, all that pertains to the mollifying of life he delivered to men, and since that time, nothing more has been invented by anybody. Onus was simply the Greek name for the Babylonian Ea, the Sumerian Enki, worshipped in the city of Eridu at the mouth of the Euphrates rivers. And this tradition dates to the earliest stage of Sumerian history, a time when the myths say that Enki and his wife Damkina governed the lost paradise of Dilmun, the pure place of man's genesis. The inhabitants of this paradise lived in a state of near perfection, drinking the waters of life and enjoying unbounded prosperity. Ruling over this favoured domain, Enki introduced civilization to mankind, founded the first cities and temples, and set down the first laws. If, in the account of Berosus, the bringer of civilization appears as a man, the earlier accounts call him the creator. His home was the cosmic sea, the Apsu, the celestial waters of fire, rage, splendour and terror. The priests of Enki deemed him Mamu, the creative word. Like the Egyptian creator, Enki brought forth the secondary gods through his own speech. Diverse localities worshipped the same cosmic power under different names. In the ancient city of Lagash, the priests honoured the god Ninurta as the farer of the paradisal age. Ninurta founded temples and cities. The years of his rule, connected with the beginning of the world, were years of plenty. Ninurta scaled the mountain and scattered seed far and wide, and the plants with one accord named him as their king. The Sumerians themselves knew that Ninurta was the same as the vegetation god Dumuzi, son of the Apsu, the shepherd of mankind, whom classical mythology knew as Adonis, and whose catastrophic departure or death became the focus of ritual lamentations for many hundreds of years. But Enki, Ninurta and Dumuzi were only aspects of the creator An, whose ideogram appears as the earliest Mesopotamian sign of divinity. In all myths and hymns, the Sumerians distinguished the present age from that day or the days of old, when the gods gave men abundance, the day when vegetation flourished. The supreme figure reigning over this remote age was An, the central and highest light, whose foremost epithet was Lugal, meaning king. The Sumerians claimed that the very institution of kingship descended from the heaven of An, and it was An who produced the beneficent age, when a destiny was fixed for everything that was engendered, when An engendered the year of abundance. How widespread was this memory of a golden age, founded and governed by the creator himself? It appears that the tradition was either preserved in or migrated to every section of the world. In Mexico, legends recount the ancient rule of Quetzalcoatl, who appeared from the sea to become the good and wise ruler of Tolan in the Golden Age. The legends describe this god as a lawgiver, teacher of the arts and founder of the purified religion. He was the ancestral founding king, and all later Toltec kings consider themselves his direct descendants. In the story of Quetzalcoatl, one finds the same confusion of man and God as in the legends of Egypt and Mesopotamia. Although this Quetzalcoatl had been a man that was respected as a god, indeed he was the creator, for he made the heavens, the sun, the earth, and the Toltecs claim that in the beginning, their race knew only one god. Only one god did they have, and they held him as the only god. They invoked him, they supplicated him. His name was Quetzalcoatl. Not only was Quetzalcoatl the giver of life, the legends proclaims that the first divine generation emanated directly from him. But eventually, this god, just like his counterparts around the world, he suffered a violent fate, bringing an end to his golden age. To the Egyptian, Mesopotamian and American Indian accounts of this remote epoch, it corresponds with numerous legends of India, Iran, China and Europe. But what do you guys think about this? Comments below, and as always, thank you for watching.